Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the weapons changes that are coming to Star Citizen in Alpha 3.23, or supposed to. Okay, so what's happening is a complete rebalance of all of the combat ships in the game. So it's not just the flight model and master modes, but they're also changing weapons and components. Now, CIG has also hinted that in Arena Commander, in one of the experimental modes, we might also get engineering. Okay, so they're slowly going to roll out the different aspects of how they want the ships to ultimately be when the game releases. So after this phase of development, the ship balancing and models will finally go into full development. So before, we had a lot of placeholder stuff. Okay, so one of the major cornerstones that is changing about the combat is the way that weapons are treated. Right now, when you have a ship, there is a size down model from what your hard points on the ship actually are. Okay, so I have a pretty good example here with the Arrow. Okay, this is a very popular combat ship, and there are going to be a few. Well, so basically, what CIG said is that moving forward after 3.23, the weapon scaling is going to change a little bit. So when you have a fixed weapon, they will all now be gimbaled. Now there are some exceptions with this new rule. Ships like the Ion and the Inferno, they have fixed guns, so those weapons will remain integrated on those ships and they will not be gimbaled. Guns like the Idris railgun and the integrated nose guns of the Vanguard. So there are a few exceptions with this, but every other weapon, essentially weapons that can be mounted on a gimbal, will always now be mounted on a gimbal. I don't know if they are getting rid of the ability to swap out gimbals and make a weapon fixed. Based on the Star Citizen Live that the developer spoke on, is that they don't entirely know yet. They're not sure how they're going to do that or how they're going to tackle that. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. They might have changed their stance on this. But right now, all the weapons are going to gimbal, again with a few slight exceptions. So I wanted to dive into some of the ships and what this could mean. Now, strictly speaking, the numbers that we're about to look at are not set in stone. Okay, this website that I'm using is called DPS Calculator. I will leave a link to it in the video description below. But essentially what I want to do in this video is look at what the DPS of some ships will be before this change and after this change, and look at some of the configurations and some ships and how these ships will change moving forward after this. Now, again, of course, CIG is probably not going to implement this, something like this, and not balance the DPS of all the guns. So all the guns will probably get a balanced pass, and we'll have to look at this again. But depending on what you configure, it, in my opinion, is going to be a very interesting change to the game, and right now it seems to be flying under the radar. Not too many people seem to be talking about it. So again, right here we have the Arrow, and I think this is a really interesting ship to look at because it has gimbals installed when you get it. So when you buy it in game or with real money, it does have gimbals and weapons on those gimbals, and it has a fixed remote to it. What Seiji said with this gimbal update is that turret guns will also be gimbaled. Okay, but that might not mean a size change. So that's why I think the Arrow is a good ship to look at, because the Arrow has a top mounted remote turret with 2 size 1s on it. So right now, those are not gimbaled, but they track with the hub of the turret. So these guns will not change their size when this change goes into effect. So these 2 size 1 guns on this these 2 size 1 guns on this turret, they're going to remain the same. So again, with the previous system, when you had a certain sized hard point and you put a gimbal on it, the weapon that could be mounted to that gimbal had to be a size down. That is going away. So right now it has 2 Scorpion ballistic Gatlings on there. So we're going to get rid of this. We're going to put a Mantis on there. So you can see right here the sustained DPS of the Mantis versus the Scorpion. Okay, so I've only changed one one gun so far. So I swapped out this size 2 Scorpion with a size 3 Mantis, and the size 2 Scorpion has sustained DPS of 645, and the size 3 Mantis has a sustained DPS of 800. So we're going to go back here. I'm going to put the Scorpion back on it. So pay close attention to the DPS total here. We have 1787. So actually, what I'll do is we'll do a side-by-side test. So this is the way the ship is configured right now, and then in slot 2 we will compare it to the way the ship could be configured moving forward after 323. Okay, so we have the remote turret with 2 size 1s that cannot be changed. Okay, you can change other weapons on it, but they will have to be size 1s. What we can change though is these 2 size 2 Scorpion ballistic Gatlings. We can now put size 3s on here. So we put a Mantis, we put 2 Mantis. So now it doesn't say that they're gimbaled anymore, but they will automatically be gimbaled because gimbals can now support the same size weapon as the hard point. So the Avil has 2 size 3 hard points. It can now support 2 size 3 Mantis. So you can see how the DPS goes up dramatically. We now have 2097 DPS versus 1787. So not too bad comparison right there. So that's why I say I don't know if CIG is going to rebalance all the weapons right when this comes out. So what's more than likely to happen is that CIG is going to change the way that gimbals work, and then the players are going to have to play and test, and then CIG will balance the guns. Because so far there hasn't been any mention of a complete weapons rebalance going into effect in 323. Right now, all we know is that the gimbals are changing. So let's kind of compare a few more ships here. So another thing that I wanted to look at is the Gladius. So the Gladius is a good example of a ship that is going to remain pretty consistent between right now and 323. So the Gladius has, well, it's going to be interesting the way it's going to be balanced, because right now it has 3 size 3 fixed weapons. All 3 of these weapons moving forward will be gimbal. So all the weapons on the Gladius are going to go from fixed weapons to gimbal weapons. Right now you can put gimbals on the Gladius, but it sizes down these weapons. So right now it has 2 size 3 Panthers. And if we put a gimbal on here and we go for a repeater, let's say we put a Badger on there, DPS goes down sharply. So right now what you would do is you would put the gimbal on there, and then you would put a size 2 weapon on there. So let's go back to the Panther. Okay, there isn't a huge difference in DPS there, but I think that it is going to be very interesting to now be able to have these weapons gimbal. The Gladius is a light fighter and it is already very capable. So to imagine how much easier it is going to be able to be used with fully gimbal weapons now is going to be very interesting, because I think the big trade-off was for a lot of people to have fixed ballistic weapons on there so they can get huge DPS once they get to their opponent's shields, and they can get the kill quickly. But now these ballistic weapons being gimbaled can be very deadly. Okay. Another ship that I want to look at is the Avenger Titan. This ship is a very interesting ship because it does have very good combat performance. And for entry-level combat, this is the ship that I would recommend, because, you know, it has a bed to log out in, it has a cargo area in the back, it has 2 exits. You have the back ramp, and then you can, you know, enter and exit through the canopy of this ship. It has pretty good ground. It has pretty good ground clearance for being able to land just about anywhere. It is fast and very maneuverable. It has those 2 size 1 shields, but most importantly, it has very good hard points. It has 1 size 4 on the nose, and then 2 size 3s, 1 on each wing. So right now, these are all gimbaled, so they're sized down. So the nose gun is a size 3 and the wing guns are a size 2. Moving forward, we get to take out something like the, right now we have the Mantis Gatling on the nose. We can swap that out and we can put the AD4B. Okay, look at that. 1366 DPS. Let's just go back for a second and let's compare it. The Mantis, 800. Well, what I'll do here is I'll get another one. Okay, Titan. So this is the stock configuration, and then this side will configure what it's gonna be in 323. So we're gonna get rid of this, and we're gonna go with the AD4B. Okay, and then we have the Badger. We're gonna get rid of that, and we're gonna put the Panther. See, where's the other Panther? Here. Okay, so 1824 to 1220. So this is a pretty big DPS difference. Okay, of course, because your energy weapons, you can go, you know, full power to, and it'll go up to 1366. And then, you know, of course, you're at 2000 here if you go full power to weapons. Of course, that just accounts for the 2 Panther laser repeaters. But, you know, with that single size 4, you know, ballistic Gatling, the AD4B, the Titan is pretty interesting. Okay, you compare it with the Arrow, or the Gladius. Okay, I think this is probably a better comparison here. We have the Gladius. Now, the Gladius that we're looking at is a pretty effective ship. It is very maneuverable. It is getting gimbaled weapons, all size 3s. But you look at the DPS here, 1200. That's not changing. Okay, the DPS is staying the same in 323, but these weapons are now going to be on gimbals. The Avenger, on the other hand, the Avenger is going to get the ability to have, you know, these weapons on its hard point at their full size. So you're getting more DPS with the Avenger Titan moving forward. Okay, and again, this is let's put it back to the middle here. That's about good. So you have you know, the ability to have a lot of DPS compared to something like the Gladius. because you have that 1 size 4 hard point on the nose versus the 1 size 3 hard point on the Gladius. The Titan before, let's put this in the middle here, 1223, and you have the Gladius 1258. Okay, so the Gladius had more DPS before. Now the Titan is going to have more DPS. The Titan, all the Titan's weapons are going to be gimbaled. All the Gladius's weapons are going to be gimbaled. So I think slowly different metas will start to form, and of course the player base is going to have to test out how each ship, works with this change, because again, some ships will be getting bigger weapons. Some ships will have their weapons gimbaled for the first time. Basically, I think CIG should give us the ability to make weapons fixed moving forward. So a ship comes with gimbals, and this is just my suggestion, and I haven't tried it out yet. Again, this is a feature that's going to be in 3.23, but this is just my initial impressions of this idea, looking at the numbers on DPS calculator. And again, I will leave this website linked in the video description so you can kind of play with numbers. These numbers are not going to remain accurate moving forward. CIG will eventually rebalance a lot of this stuff, but I think that CIG should maintain the ability to take the gimbals off and have hard mounted weapons, and give us the ability to essentially keep this gimbal as a separate item. Because right now in the game, you can buy a gimbal and you put it on your ship and you can have a different weapon. And the way to balance that is CIG could adjust the ammo numbers for a fixed gun versus a gimbaled gun. Okay, so we look at the DPS here of a ship like the Avenger Titan. The Avenger Titan's DPS is going to go up after this change. But the second factor that you want to pay close attention to is the max amount of ammo. Now, of course, a ballistic weapon, the ammo's not going to change because it's a ballistic weapon. But what CIG could do to balance this is adjust the ammo of energy weapons. And kind of the thought process behind that is that, of course, maybe your ship's computer calculates how much force is going to be exerted on the gimbal, and it won't be able to hold sustained DPS or fire for as long, because the sustained fire will deteriorate the structural integrity of the gimbal, versus a fixed mounted gun. The hard mount is more structurally secure, so the computer unlocks more ammo. So basically, if you have a gimbal, you have the ability to track your target a lot better, but you have less ammo than somebody who has a fixed weapon on that mount. So in my opinion, I think this would do two things. It would lower the skill floor for new players, because you can have a larger sized weapon on that on a gimbaled mount, giving you the ability to track your targets easier. But at the same time, it would raise the skill ceiling for people who are a little bit better pilots and can track their enemy a little bit better on their own. They can have a little bit more ammo to do that with. So for skilled players who are better pilots and can track their opponents a little bit better, they have a little bit more ammo. And for new players, they have the ability to have more DPS with that larger weapon and be able to have kind of a assistance in tracking their enemy. So right now, the way that CIG is kind of proposing it is that they haven't really said anything about ammo numbers. And again, of course, I think CIG might balance that, but this would give them the ability to, maintain the gimbal as a separate equipable item and still have a use for the fixed mount for anybody who wants to mount their guns fixed. This is just an idea. We're just kind of talking, this is a theory crafting channel. We're kind of theory crafting what the future of combat could look like with this system. So I really want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this new weapon system moving forward? I know a lot of people have eyes on the flight model and master modes and whatnot. And of course, the atmospheric flight model is not coming in 323. Master modes is, mostly speed changes. I think the biggest change that's really coming in 323 is this weapons change. But again, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this new system. I think it's really interesting, and I think the testing is going to be very exciting. And let me know what you guys think about master modes as well. Have you been testing it out in Arena Commander? Have you been having fun with it? I would love to hear from you guys. But that's going to be it for me here today. A lot of content coming out for the game, a lot of videos that I have to make, so be sure to look forward to that. Like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Salute.